my wife and I got stopped by at least 4 different types of transportation. We got stopped by a rollerblading group, some kind of festival that's going on, a bike festival that the Dolphins are doing. We got caught in a yacht.
1947. In 1947, I was delivered by my grandmother, the midwife, in Quitman, Georgia. Later, the family moved to Opelika, Florida, in a neighborhood called The Bottom, across the railroad tracks.
I was born in my grandparents' home in Palaca, Florida, June 22nd, 1947.
I was born in Jackson Memorial Hospital on October 14, 1947.
I was born in July of 1947 in Christian Hospital. Christian Hospital. I know you're out
In 1918, after the city-owned Jackson Memorial Hospital refused to treat the black maid of Mrs. Bonnie M. Bush.
Wow.
Mrs. Bush donated thousands of dollars and 5 acres of land at 1218 Northwest First Place to start the hospital. At its start, Christian Hospital was a makeshift 12-bed facility. After suffering damage in a 1935 hurricane, the hospital was rebuilt into a 30-bed facility.
The new Christian Hospital opened in 1959 at 4700 Northwest 32nd Avenue.
with modern medical equipment and services.
Wow.
50 beds.
Including 80 physicians.
When I was 5 years old, we moved to Miami, Florida. Overtown was our neighborhood. It was a neighborhood where I felt safe. In Overtown, we had everything we needed. We had churches, schools, hotels, doctors, teachers, restaurants, and other businesses. On my first trip downtown Miami, I got on the bus with my mom, and she sat down. The driver told us she had to move to the back of the bus.
Wow.
My family moved to Miami, Florida when I was passing to the 3rd grade. My family moved to Brownsville when I was 9. Our next door neighbors were white. They had a young daughter who would come over and play with me. By the end of that month, that family moved.
During my early youth, I accepted segregationist practices as just part of the atmosphere. For example, I distinctly remember my mother and I thinking nothing of sitting in the back of the bus as we traveled to downtown Miami. I also recall seeing white-only and Negro-only water fountains. In fact, I was admonished by my mother on many occasions for using the white-only fountain. But Mama, that other fountain is filthy and not fit to drink from.
When I saw the white fountain and the colored fountain, I rushed over to the colored fountain. I turned it on, was disappointed. The water wasn't colored, it was white! I thought it was going to be red, like Kool-Aid.
During the summer, when I was 11 years old, I was in charge of a group of kids younger than me. We lived on one side of the canal, and on the other side, white people lived. We had been on this side before, to the wooded area, to pick berries. This one day, we had our bags and walked down to the end of the canal and started walking up towards the white side, towards the wooded area. Up ahead of us, a house door opened, and 2 growling dogs came running towards me and the other kids. I told the other kids not to run. They won't bite us if we don't run, so they were all shaking, but none of us ran. Some white man came from the house and grabbed the growling, barking dogs. One said,
You little niggers better not come over here anymore, or we're gonna let these dogs eat you.
I don't remember anything else about that summer.
When I was 12, we went shopping for a wedding gown for my sister at a store next to Bernard's. When they didn't have what mother wanted, we went to Bernard's. At first, my family was denied access in Bernard's, but mother made it clear she had the money to shop.
Hello.
And in the store, a little white girl pulled my hair to see if it was real. As a small girl, the first encounters I can remember having with white folks were when they brought their clothes to our house for my grandmother to wash and iron. On occasions, my mother would take me to work with her.
and she had to clean the homes of white folks. She had to have an ID permit to go to Miami Beach to work.
Oh, wow.
She would make me comfortable and then set about cleaning. She always said to me,
Baby, I don't ever want you to have to do this for a living.
My first memory of racial awareness was at the age of 3. We visited an aunt in New York City. When my aunt mentioned a restaurant she wanted to take us to, I asked if it was black or white. She responded, "You don't have that up here." I remember wondering how that was possible at all. It was as if she said, "We don't have water here."
Wow.
I flew up with my aunt to New York City in 1956. We were seated on a plane with no separation along racial lines. There was no incident.
At age 6 is the earliest I can recall traveling without adult supervision. I was on a train destined for Connecticut. I suppose I was considered non-threatening to the white passengers. I sat beside 2 women who were receptive to answering all of my questions about my personal lives. They took me to the dining car with them to have lunch. I suppose I was novelty to them.
at age 7, I remember not seeing any white people in our neighborhood. I asked my mom, where are all the white people?
My first encounter with racism, I remember, was in downtown Miami in the summer of 1957. My good friend and I would often catch the bus downtown during the summer to mainly walk around and window shop. I believe we're both 10 years old. After walking and shopping, we became hot and thirsty. We decided to stop at Kresge's 5 and Dime to get something to eat and drink. And sat at the counter. Several minutes went by, but no one came to take our order. White people sitting looked rather embarrassed. Finally, a waitress looking rather embarrassed came over to us and said,
Girls, you know you cannot sit at this counter.
My friend and I looked at each other in shock and disbelief, then promptly got up and left. We both experienced feelings of pain and anger at being treated different people who looked like us.
During the summer of 1960, I was selected to go to the YWCA Y Teen Camp in Lake Placid, Florida.
Wow.
There were 2 of us from the Black Y. I remember being extremely curious about the white teens and how their lives might be different from mine. Clearly, they were equally curious about us, and we answered each other's questions and compared everything from clothes to recreation, schools, and all. I do remember wondering if their living rooms had a sofa and 2 chairs like mine, or something I had never even heard of. I haven't had an experience so painful as to leave me with an everlasting trauma. Praise God.
New Year.
1965.
The outside world didn't matter so much because we were in our own world.
Seniors.
Look at you. Seniors all over again.
We were spinning like a tornado.
That ain't no bull.
Yeah, we were flying high like thunderbirds.
Seniors.
Many could imitate us, but none could duplicate us.
Listen while I talk to you.
This is the time before arthritis.
And dementia.
Hey, anybody remember with Julie Walker and All Stars?
You're okay.
Hold it down, everyone. Shh, quiet.
Yeah, be quiet. Don't you see him coming?
See Mr. Howard coming? See Mr. White? See Mr. Corrado?
Act dignified.
Not long out of high school, I obtained a job at Long's Office Supply Company at 601 North Miami Avenue, not far from Flagler Avenue. One day, while on my 30-minute lunch break, I ventured into McCory's 5 and Dime Street on Flagler and took a seat at the lunch counter. Needless to say, all eyes turned towards me.
May I have a menu, please?
Asked the blonde waitress. I ordered a hamburger which was $3.75. After eating, I called for the waitress.
Miss!
She acted as though she didn't hear me. It should be known, I had $4 in my hand and displayed it to the waitress. This went on for some time, so eventually, I removed myself from the lunch counter without paying and left the restaurant. No one followed me and called me a bill skip. By the waitress behavior, I imagine I was invisible that day.
Having grown up in Miami's Liberty City, I knew of segregation, but felt no real loss from it. It wasn't until I went to Tuskegee Institute in 1965 that I learned what real segregation was all about. The town of Tuskegee was so racially divided that even though we, the students at the college, were a large source of income for the town, they still treated us with utter disdain. They followed us around the stores and waited on everyone ahead of us. Even when we marched against the injustice of a shooting of a student by a white man in town, the black residents didn't want us stirring up trouble.
When I arrived at Howard University in '65, I was astounded to see black sales girls in the department stores and black employees in the public library.
I was on the UC campuses during the student civil unrest and the LA riots, and in San Francisco during the time the police hit the Black Panthers.
As a young adult, I realized the inequalities we had to endure during my brief time spent in Tallahassee while attending FAMU. It was at this point that I made a conscious decision to migrate to another county where blacks were treated equally as whites in another country.
I recently went to Ohio to attend grad school on a fellowship. Had I not gotten the fellowship, I would not have chosen to go to Cleveland. One Saturday, a group of us decided to get together. I was the only black person in this particular group. There was an Italian student among us who suggested that we go down to a place in Cleveland called Little Italy. They were having the yearly Feast of the Assumption. The Italian student said that it would put me in the middle and they would surround me for protection. There were 5 of us. By the time we got down the hill, someone yelled, "What are you doing with that black girl?" Jason immediately said, "Run, Caroline!" I took off, back up the hill. Later, the Italian student apologized, but my eyes were open.
Still in Miami, I was a single mom with 2 boys to raise. I applied for a job as a tax collector at the courthouse. I passed all the required test and was scheduled for an interview with the director of that department and his secretary. He said he liked me and he wanted to hire me. But I had to promise him that I would never wear an afro hairstyle because he didn't like them.
Wow.
I didn't make that promise. And I was hired. I was the first black person hired to work in that section of the tax collector's department.
Probably the best decision I made was to join the U.S. Air Force in 1965. Several high school acquaintances who were serving in the Air Force during the time I was in high school told me the organization was fair, offered numerous opportunities, and all I had to do was fully apply myself. That's all I wanted to hear. I was truly motivated when I joined. I found the Air Force and the people I served with were true professionals. However, I distinctly recall one particular occasion when a chief master sergeant made the disparaging comment, "I've never met a Negro possessing the intelligence to be a super sergeant, chief master, or senior master in this Air Force." Well, guess what? I personally disparaged that comment by being promoted to senior master sergeant.
When I decided to join the Navy, I had no idea what I would face. I really never thought about it. It turned out that I was the only black in my class. This didn't have any adverse effect on my training. But after that, the color of my skin was not my only problem. The dating pool was also very limited since I was an officer. Most of the people I worked with in the Navy were fine, except for the fact that I was a woman. I had a run-in with my superiors when I counted the men's early calendars in their cubicles with a fat man calendar in mine.
I played trombone in the Air Force Band in South Dakota, Hawaii, and New Jersey. In South Dakota, when we marched in parades, I could only imagine what the people were saying when they saw me marching on the front row. I visited a band member's home. I was amazed. I was the first black person his sister has ever seen.
Here's one I bet many people don't know. On some military bases, when Martin Luther King was killed, black soldiers were not allowed to leave the barracks until searched for weapons, and not allowed to go to work.
I thought I was real lucky to get a job teaching in Miami, right out of college. After a few weeks of school, my black principal called me in for a meeting. He told me to stop teaching that black history stuff. We have nothing in our past to be proud of.
Wow.
If the white man didn't purify the waters, we wouldn't be able to drink it. So if you don't stop, I'm going to fire you. That's how I lost my first job.
At my first job in New York, my college roommate and I were the first blacks hired. Some coworkers from upstate New York asked us if our color was brown and pretty because we drink hot chocolate every morning before 3.
When I returned to the U.S. in the late 70s, things had changed. While I was out of the country, I avoided the marches, and I am thankful for those persons who demonstrated equality and justice for all. I was the first person hired at the University of Miami Medical School in a clerical administrative position. Whenever I was introduced to top brass, it was prefaced with, "Oh, she's not from here. She's from another country."
Oh, wow.
I've had successful careers in the Air Force, 20 years, and in the federal government, 25 years, and made notable achievements in both.
I was the first black manager in Los Angeles assigned to federal government accounts for telecommunication needs.
I am the creator of the engine hood that appeared on the Volkswagen in the mid-70s that made it look like other vehicles.
After much hard work, I became the manager of a major supermarket. I gave the first jobs to many of the children of my former classmates. I am
Was
nurse,
Lawyer,
Longshoreman.
Teacher.
Principal.
Musician.
Salesman.
Entrepreneur.
I am Barbara James.
I am Hattie Jackson Johnson.
I am Audrey Lorraine Smith.
I am Antoinette Wood Miller.
I am Wallace Roberts.
I am Blank Maypop.
I am Levy H. Lee.
I am Jackie Davis Christian.
I am June Garvin.
I am Nolan Lyle.
I am Shirley Bethel.
I am Norval Ruff.
I am C.L. Hart.
I am Carol Williams Perry.
I am Caroline M. Brown.
I am Leroy Meadows.
I am Sandra Wilson Carey.
I am Helen Johnson.
I am Charles Sweeting.
I am Richard Miller.
I was given the name Sandra Moore at birth. I am Amita Salahuddin.
Stories from graduates of Booker T. Washington,
Miami Northwestern.
And Miami North Dade.
Classes of 65. Darkness cannot drive out darkness.
Hate cannot drive out hate.
only love can do that.
Martin Luther King Jr., 1965.
Our history is micro.
We thank you for nursing us during our sickness, even though you exhausted yourselves. We thank you for giving us love and all the sacrifices you made. We thank you. We were blessed by your guidance, love, support, and friendship.